2023. We are transmitting, as I said earlier, from the GSM studio of Aloore Radio from the Ministry of Information and Orientation, Secretariat Agodi, Ibadan, Oyo State, Nigeria. And I am your host, Aboyede Ojo. We appreciate everyone listening to us and joining us on the program for today, the H.O.S Speaks. And for the benefit of those that are joining us for the very first time, the program, the H.O.S Speaks, is geared to foster and create relationship between the civil and public servants in Oyo State and, of course, the office of the Oyo State Civil Service. On this program, H.O.S Speaks, it's a program that comes up every fortnight. So the last time we had this program, we had with us in the studio the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Budget and Planning. But today, before I introduce our special guest to you, I want you to continue to join us on the Facebook on www.facebook.com/Aloore Radio, also on the YouTube at Aloore Radio. And of course, for our studio line, if you want to join us and be a part of this program, our studio line remains 0903 985 3731. I'll take that again, 0903 985 3731. On this program, we bring on the program the PSs from different ministries and ask questions about what obtains in their ministry for the benefit of civil and public servants, and of course, you, our dear listeners, in the general public. You can be a part of this program, and I would want you to be a part of this program because by the time you know what we're going to discuss today, you will know that it is pertinent for you to be a part of this program. I wouldn't want to let the cat out of the bag. I wouldn't want to use car because she's a wonderful, wonderful woman. Yes, I've said it. You know that she's a woman already. But in Oyo State, as I always say on this program, under the able leadership of our governor here, Governor Engineer Seyi Makinde, he always puts the right peg in the right hole. And by the time we delve into what we're going to discuss today, you will say that I am absolutely correct. Because this is a woman that understands and knows our onions about the ministry that we want to talk about today. But before I introduce her, let's go on this very short break, and we will be right back.
We bring you everything from breaking news.
President must know that this is a bad time for our nation. We must look for foreign support to save this nation.
World news, sport, music,
just want me with you like guys,
and many more. To listen to our programs, follow us live on all our social media platforms on Facebook at Aloore Radio, Twitter and Instagram at Aloore Radio. You can also subscribe on our YouTube page on Aloore Radio. Make sure you click on the notification bell so you know when we are live. This is Aloore Radio, the voice of Oyo State.
Yes, you're welcome back to the program The H.O.S Speaks on Aloore Radio, transmitting from the GSM Studio Ministry of Information and Orientation. On today's program, I have my guests already seated in the house. And before I let you see her face, let me bring you a profile. Mrs. Adebiyi Mofoluke Olubomi was born on the 24th of August. She hails from Oyo State, Ibadan North Local Government to be precise. Mrs. Adebiyi had a BSc in Demography and Social Statistics from University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University. She also proceeded on her master's degree in Business Administration, MBA Finance option. For her work experience, Mrs. Adebiyi Mofoluke joined the Oyo State Service in the year 1989 as Statistician 2. She rose to the position of Chief Statistician in charge of Social Statistics and was posted to the Budget Department of the Ministry of Finance to take charge of salary preparation for civil and public servants in Oyo State. She was later posted to Governor's Office to hold the position of Director Management Information Center, MIC. Mrs. Adibi went on to become the Director Statistics for the state and also held the position of the State Focal Person on Millennium Development Goals, Conditional Grant Scheme. Mrs. Adibi acted as PS Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget. She was then appointed as the Permanent Secretary in Oyo State Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning. She was later posted as Permanent Secretary to the Oyo State Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, a position she is holding presently. Mrs. Foluke Adebi is widely traveled and has represented Oyo State both locally and internationally. She is happily married and blessed with beautiful children. Ladies, gentlemen, my audience out there, I present to you the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, Mrs. Mofoluke Olubunmi Adebi. You're welcome, ma.
Thank you very much.
I hope I didn't mess up the profile. I hope the profile was just it.
It's okay.
Thank you so much. It's nice to have you with us on this program
Yes,
today.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. I believe this is your first time in the studio today.
Yes.
So what can you say?
I want to thank the Office of the Head of Service and the management of Ministry of Information for this opportunity to showcase what we are doing in Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development. It's really good to be here.
Thank you so much. Really nice to have you with us. So, ma'am, we'll go straight to the crux of the matter today. Your Honor is observing critically the efforts of the present administration under the able leadership of our Governor H.O.S Makinde. We can see that laudable feats had been attained based on how issues of lands, housing, and urban development. But ma'am, kindly appreciate the impact of the state government so far on land matters in Oyo State.
Thank you very much. Let me just, I'm a statistician, so I'd love to deal with figures. Let me run quickly the trajectory of performance on internally generated revenue as Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development is affected. When this government came on board in year 2019, the overall performance was 1.4 billion naira. And with before I begin to explain what was put in place in terms of policy, provision and implementation, by year 2020, we graduated to 2.7 billion in revenue performance. By year 2021, Oyo State hit 3.027 billion in revenue generation in land management. And performance is heightened in year 2022 when we generated 5.6 billion naira. So how did the current administration under the able leadership of Governor H.O.S Makinde do this? Number one, when this government came on board, we all know the encumbrance public always had with obtaining their certificates of occupancy. When this government came on board, immediately a homeowner charter was introduced as to CFO obtaining in the state. And it was agreed that CFO would be issued within 60 days of application. And this actually brought the number of people that have come to apply and to obtain their CFOs to over 10,000. This is a figure that Oyo State did not have 10 years prior to the advent of this administration. As we speak, 10,300 CFOs have been issued out. And in year 2022, to bring an improvement on CFO generation, we went beyond issuing CFOs to just residential properties. We graduated to industrial and agricultural properties to actually cover every property that anybody might have in the state. So we made it 100% coverage. So that actually has improved the performances and given people access to title documents. Beyond this, Oyo State government introduced public-private partnership arrangement into the development of GRAs. I would, let me take us down the memory lane. We have existing GRAs traditionally put in place by the state government. And considering some of the challenges that we had in laying infrastructure for these GRAs to actually be habitable for people, government decided to go out and partner. And that is the best practice you can think of. Government cannot do it alone. It's always important to involve the private sector in whatever government is doing. So government has brought on board developers. And what do these developers do? They will provide all necessary infrastructure in terms of road network, in terms of drainages, in terms of central water provision, electricity provision, security, and what have you, to make a modern estate. They will provide this, and based on what they have done, government will part with some portion of the land for the developer, and government will have our own, from which we have generated huge money for government. In year 2022 alone, we made 3.8 billion from this arrangement. Beyond this, government, wanting to ensure that land use charges are properly paid for in the state, went ahead to carry out a property enumeration across the state. And this actually has improved what we generate on land use charge. We have gone beyond the shores of Ibadan. We have gone to other parts of the state to ensure that land use charges are paid across the state, especially in local governments that are viable. Also, in the bid to create enabling environments for that sector to thrive, many of our existing laws have been reviewed. We have brought into full force we are bringing to full force the land use charge law, which is presently undergoing the second reading in the State House of Assembly. And this actually is going to bring more people into the tax net and ensure that people perform their civic responsibility in this area. Also, government has created a feedback system, a strong feedback system. And here's an opportunity for us to let the public know that government has a strong feedback system, because we understand the vulnerability and the sensitivity of this sector. We always welcome feedback. So there's a feedback system that is operational 24/7 for people to reach back to government on issues that relate to land. Again, government has decided to ensure that land is easily accessed for industrial and other commercial purpose. For some people that have at one time or the other procured parcels of land that now belong to government, we have a system in place wherein we integrate them into the government scheme, as long as what they are doing is complementary to progress and to improvement of commerce in Oyo State. So all this have been put in place, generally making it easy for land accessible for people to access land for business purposes. These are some of the things that government has done.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. I know that if I actually give you the time, you're going to keep reading out all the process, because under this present administration, it has been back-to-back progress and achievements, and we are really glad that we are under this administration as well. Actually, you've taken almost all the questions at a go, and I really appreciate all that you're doing. But Ma, when you were talking, you mentioned some two things I would need you to please expatiate on. You mentioned property enumeration. Please, for the benefit those listening to us, what does that obtain? What does that mean? Property enumeration?
Property enumeration is actually going out to have a list of all existing properties in Oyo State, and that's our way of creating a database, and we're expanding on that. And this actually has been supported by the World Bank program that the ministry is engaged in. So all properties are listed. We have them on our database.
All properties, you mentioned the industrial and
agricultural, residential. Yes.
Oh, so that means my house is also part
Oh
of
yes.
it.
Oh yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, Your Honor, thank you so much for explaining the details about that. But I will not but ask as well that under the Omitutu 1.0, we have the CFO being issued within 60 days. I believe that is still obtainable than this 2.0?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. And are there other policies and regulations needed for the certificate, or are there other things added to it for the benefit of the listeners?
Like I said, we graduated from Homeowners Charter to CFO Redefined, and that is still in place as I speak. But the issue that people have is their inability to actually satisfy the conditions required for them to obtain their CFO in 60 days.
May we know the conditions?
Okay. Anybody that wants to obtain CFO in Oyo State will come with their original land agreement. They will come with their original survey and record copy. They will come with the description of the land, definitely the photograph and everything, their telephone numbers, their means of identification, and all that. But what we discover is that most of the time, people are not able to provide the document that will support us to pull through their documentation within 60 days. They keep going back and forth. Another issue is the issue of going to visit their sites. As we speak, we have about 495 files that await the clients or the applicants to actually just come to the ministry and take our officers to visit the sites. Several calls have been made to these people, but they are not showing up for whatever reason is known to them. So these are some of the issues that we have. Barring this, CFO will be ready within 60 days.
For the listeners out there, you're hearing it from the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development. It is left to you. If you want your CFO to be ready within 60 days, or your state government is ready, but the ball is in your court. We will be right back after this very short break. Keep listening to Aloore Radio.
Join our growing community of listeners all around the globe by following Aloore Radio on all our social media platforms. On Facebook, Aloore Radio, YouTube, Aloore Radio. Visit our website on www.alooreradio.com. You can also download the Aloore Radio application on the Google Play Store by searching Aloore Radio. Call or send a message on 0903 985 3731. From the great city of Ibadan, your number one online radio station. We are the voice of Oyo State. Aloore Radio. Whether you're a native of Ibadan or a visitor, Aloore Radio brings you closer to the heart and soul of Oyo State and beyond. Aloore Radio, the online radio that amplifies the voice of Oyo State.
Here we stand as a people with one song, with one voice. We're a nation undivided and voice.
Yes, you're welcome back to the H.O.S Speaks here on Aloore Radio, transmitting from the GSM Studio, Ministry of Information and Orientation. And here with me, I still have the Permanent Secretary here in Oyo State of the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, in person of Mrs. Mofoluke Olubumi Adebi. Thank you for being with us, ma.
It's good to be here.
And ma, let's go on. Your Honor, we can say that Oyo State too has had its fair share of vandalism, both in land grabbing and infrastructure, based on reported encroachment on government lands and properties. Your Honor, what efforts are being taken by the government to nip the bud of these so-called land grabbers and encroachers, especially in the government-reserved areas?
Thank you. Oyo State has a law in place to actually control the activities of land grabbers. I tell you, they're all over the place, encroaching on private land and also on government GRAs. If you follow our activities, recently we demolished illegal structures at one of our GRAs, that's Omolulu Olunloyo GRA, Ring Road, and it generated a lot of issues. Here is a GRA that was acquired by government in the 1960s, and all necessary compensation duly paid. And then we have some group of people that claimed to be the owner of the place, who are unduly, illegally selling parcels of land to people. We had to warn, we had to let people know. Even some of them, when they started development, we warned them that this place belongs to government. We stopped them. We served the necessary notices to stop them, but they ignored government. And after we followed due process and it was time for us to move to site to demolish, we did not hesitate. Guided by His Excellency Governor Seyi Makinde, we went on site and we pulled down. And I need to say that some of these parcels of land have their owners already. The government had, sold to. They were debarred, from gaining access to their sites. So we had to be bullish in our approach to stopping these people, and government is not hesitating to do more. As we speak, there's a task force on property protection in place. The place is headed by Justice Ike, and they are doing so much, to curb the activities of these land grabbers, both on government land and individual land. All it takes for you is to report and bring a proof that you are the owner of the land, and the government swings into action.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. And also, we're doing that same kind of line of thought. Also concerning this, the GRAs, it's no longer news that the government has handed over the GRA to developers.
That's not true.
That is what is going round.
That's not.
Okay.
That's
I'm
not
glad
true.
that I brought this up. Please, please explain to the people.
I mentioned earlier that because government fund has so many competitors, government decided to be innovative in the provision of a GRA infrastructure for people. So we approached people that have the means to provide infrastructure on existing land that we intend to be GRAs. And that's why we have this, what I call land swap arrangement with developers. They will bring their money, government will provide the land, they will provide all the necessary infrastructure, and based on their spending, government will part with a portion, a certain percentage of the land to the developer, so that will take care of his spending, and he's meant to sell according to rates that are provided by government. At least as far as what we do in Ministry of Lands is concerned, there's a control over the expenditure, over the fee that they collect, and government too will sell her own portion and generate revenue. For a while, the management of the GRA might be in the hand of the developer too. That's actually to establish the runnings of the GRA, but all our GRAs belong to government.
Thank you so much for explaining that and for bringing all that information to the public to know that the GRAs are still government owned.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for that, ma'am. Also, Oyo State is known to, as we know, on geography, that has a large percentage of land, and due to this, the state accommodates a lot of people, having structures erected at every nook and cranny of the state, with little or no legal backing from the government to have such structures. Thereby we now have illegal structures emanating left and right. Your Honor, what is the stake of government on properties built on land without proper drainage system, or even there are so many that are hazardous, like being under this high voltage, and there's still buildings erected, and when you ask them, they say they got the permission from Ministry of Lands.
That can never be true. The physical planning department of the ministry is in the process of transforming to a full bureau. And that's one of the measures put in place by government to curb the menace of a physical development without approvals. As we speak, we have strengthened that department such that there's a standing task force that is enforcing the physical planning rules and regulations across the state. Yes, people come up with structures without approvals, and we pull down the structures. I cited the example of what happened at our GRA in Ring Road just now. They are private. I'm sure you are aware of the fact that there's a law that is in place now that any illegal structure, particularly obstructing public places, should be pulled down. For instance, we have kiosks around schools, we have them around our hospitals and all that. His Excellency has given directive that they should be pulled down, and in the 33 local governments, we have our directors of physical planning. They are at work 24/7, working to actually curb the menace of existing illegal structures all over the place. It's a problem, and we need the support of the public to help us solve this problem. We need people to actually come to the ministry, go between, the appropriate office to go to, so that you can have a proper building approval before you commence construction work. But the problem with us is that many people do not even have the root document, because if you don't have your documents, if you don't have the proof that you are the owner of the land and all that, we are not likely to issue any permit. So these are some of the issues that we all need to put hands together to solve.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. We've been listening to the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Lands and Housing and Urban Development here on Aloore Radio. Before we round off the program, let's go on a very short break, and we will be right back.
In a fast-paced world, staying informed is more important than to global affairs. We've got you covered. Get ready to dive into the arts of the news. It's World News on Aloore Radio. We bring you everything from breaking news.
President must know that this is a bad time for our nation. We must look for foreign support to save this nation.
World news, sport, music,
Girl, I just want me with you like I said.
and many more. To listen to our programs, follow us live on all our social media platforms on Facebook at Aloore Radio, Twitter and Instagram at Aloore Radio. You can also subscribe on our YouTube page on Aloore Radio. Make sure you click on the notification bell so you know when we are live. This is Aloore Radio, the voice of Oyo State.
Thank you for staying tuned to our Aloore Radio here at the GSM Studio, Ministry of Information and Orientation in Ibadan, Oyo State, Nigeria. You're still on to the Head of Service Speaks here on Aloore. And before I round off the program for today, Your Honor, I know there are things that the government and your ministry would want to pass across to the people, which are pertinent and they need to know, they need to hear directly from your office. Please, ma'am, the floor is yours.
First of all, to procure a parcel of land so that we don't waste our resources, it is important that we run a check to know the status of that property before we go ahead to pay for it. Ensure that you check the property, carry out your investigation, come to the ministry. A check can be run on the survey, it can be run on the CFO, it can be run on any title document that the seller is presenting to you. We advise that, and it is also advised that every service that Ministry of Land is offering to the populace has an office. They have an office that is in charge of it. Please deal directly with the officers of Ministry of Lands. Don't deal with people that hang around the ministry and claim to be staff of the ministry. You know where to go. Please go to the appropriate place. It is also advised that before the commencement of building construction, we should make sure that we obtain our approval. That's very important. It's very important. Come out and process your CFO. It is possible in 60 days if you are able to satisfy all the conditions required for you to obtain your CFO. And let me quickly give you the phone number of our feedback system. 0700 696 52637. I'll take it again. 0700 696 52637. And our email address, lands@oyostate.gov.ng. lands@oyostate.gov.ng. And we have a website that you can refer to if you want to give us any feedback apart from these other avenues that I have provided.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. I want to reiterate the number again in case you didn't hear it very well. For the feedback from the Ministry of Lands is 070069652637. Thank you so much, Your Honor. It's nice to have you with us here on Aloore Radio in the Ministry of Information and Orientation. And definitely the permanent secretary is not here alone. She came with the Director Land Service, Mrs. Osho Deborah Omoniyi. It's with her, and also with her is a statistician, Mrs. Oladotun Esther. I would want to appreciate the press officer of the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, and person of Mrs. Oriolowo Taiwo. She also came with the permanent secretaries, and also here in the studios I have directors from the Ministry of Information and Orientation, and of course our information officers are also here with us in the studio. We thank you for being with us here on the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
It's a pleasure. The next edition of H.O.S Speaks comes next fortnight, which is the 9th of November 2023. We'll be having another permanent secretary here with us. We'll be having the permanent secretary, Ministry of Public Works and Transport, here with us come November 9th, 2023. Many thanks also to my studio engineer, DJ Olawaye, and of course the man behind the camera, Mr. Joy. I remain Aboye Diojo. Thank you and stay blessed.
Here we stand as a people with one song, with one voice, where